I've been so busy recently, I needed an easy project to pursue. But that don't mean we can't have fun. It seems I have a habit of developing small fire-making kits that I stuff into Altoids tins. Here, for example, is my campfire piston fire piston kit that I made a video about a few weeks ago. Here is a miniaturized fire rolling kit that I made last summer. And this is what I believe to be the world's smallest bow drill set. I'll put links to videos I made about each of these miniaturized sets down in the description. Well, a few weeks ago, my daughter Maria challenged me to come up with a fire kit that I could put inside of this little tin. I believe this is an early version of the Altoids Smalls tin. This one says the tiny tin on it. And as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller than the regular Altoids tin. It's not quite as deep either. Mostly I just left this little tin sitting on my workbench for several weeks and tried to ignore it. But a few days ago, I finally broke down and went through all my fire making materials to see just what I could stuff inside of here. Turns out I can fit quite a bit. So let's open it up and take a look inside. All right, let's pop this little tin open and see what's inside. The first thing I've got is a few pieces of char cloth that I'm storing down in this little plastic bag. I've also got 2 pieces of cotton makeup pad that I have coated in some melted candle wax. Use that as tinder. I've got a small piece of fat wood that I can scrape up and get some fat wood shavings and use as tinder. I've got a small flint chip for my flint and steel kit. And I've got a small piece of an old broken carbon steel file that I'm going to use as my flint striker. I've got a small ferro rod. I've got 2 pieces of cotton denim that I've soaked in a dilute solution of potassium nitrate. I call that nitrated tinder. Sometimes it's called slow match. And I have a small ferro rod scraper that works very nicely. And last but not least, I have a small piece of a broken hacksaw blade that I can use to scrape my fat wood and get fat wood shavings from. And all that fits into my tiny tin, my Altoids tiny tin. So my flint and steel kit is pretty self-explanatory. Piece of flint, flint striker, and some char cloth. I'm not going to talk about that much more, but some of the other pieces I do want to spend a little bit more time talking with you about. Let's talk a little bit about my mini ferro rod. My ferro rod itself is actually a ferro rod bead made by the company Bayite. Bayite makes some really nice ferro rods. Inside of this little kit here, I have several ferro rod beads. They're about 1 inch long. As you can see, they're pre-drilled. They're meant for use in paracord bracelet or necklace type projects. I bought these some time ago and I don't remember quite how I've used them. I tried to just hold one of these and scrape it by itself, but I didn't have a whole lot of luck. And I decided that I needed to put a handle on it. This is a honeysuckle handle. It's about 1/2 inch in diameter and maybe 3/4 of an inch long. One of the nice things about honeysuckle is it's hollow. It's got a hole right down the middle. So I use that as a pilot hole, drilled myself a 5/16 inch hole. These are 5/16 inch diameter beads. Stuffed it down in and held it in with a little bit of epoxy. Works quite nicely. For my scraper, this is the company that I like the best. Fallstar makes probably, in my opinion, the best ferrule rod scrapers out there. This is what one of their pieces looks like. It's made out of carbon steel and it's stamped. And on the back side, there's a really super sharp burr that bites into ferrule rods very nicely and makes for some nice bright sparks. I sacrificed one of my several scrapers that I've collected and just broke off the top to use as a scraper for my mini ferrule rod. Now I know what some of you are probably saying, why didn't I just use the that little piece of my broken hacksaw blade? It would work. My observation though is that my Fallstar ferrule rod scraper works much better than my broken hacksaw blade does. And the hacksaw blade actually works much better than the ferrule rod scraper at making fat wood shavings. And turns out that there's plenty of room for both in my little kit. So I decided to just stuff them all in there and use them. All right, let's talk about some of those other pieces in the kit too. All right, let's talk about some of the tinder materials that I put into my little kit. The first one's real easy. I've got a couple of pieces of all cotton makeup pad that I've dipped into some melted candle wax. Here are a couple of larger ones before I cut them apart. They're real easy to make. I use these quite a bit when I'm building fires in my backyard fire pit. I just keep a mason jar, I guess this is a ball jar, full of old candles that my wife collects and gives to me from her friends. Give them to her and she gives them to me, and I put them in a double boiler and melt this wax down and then take some needle nose pliers and dip the cotton pads down into them, let them dry on a cookie sheet, and I can make 50 of these, 100 of these for $1 or $2, and it'll last me at least a year, if not longer. Real easy to make, very effective in lighting your backyard fire pit. The other thing that I have in my kit is some slow match or nitrated tinder. This is just some cotton, pair of old cotton denim blue jeans that I cut up into squares. And what I've done is I've soaked it in a dilute solution of stump remover. This is Spectracide stump remover. Turns out that this stuff is 100% potassium nitrate. Potassium nitrate is a great oxidizer. Cotton all by itself is flammable, but it doesn't smolder very well. If you soak this in a dilute solution of potassium nitrate, as it burns, the potassium nitrate gives off lots of oxygen molecules and allows this to smolder very hotly. The way I make it, I just take a plain old red Solo cup that I reserve for this purpose, and I fill it about 2/3 of the way full with the hottest water that I can get out of my tap. I don't boil it or anything. And I use maybe 2 teaspoons of this stuff that I bought at the local hardware store. Put that into the hot tap water, stir it up, and then take a big generous handful of denim squares that I've cut up. Toss them in there, stir them around, let it set overnight, and then the next morning I'll spread them out on a used pie tin and leave them out in the sun to dry for a day. If it's going to be windy, I just leave it in my garage for a day or two. And works quite nicely. I made a longer video about nitrated tinder maybe a year and a half ago. I'll put a link to that down in the description. Well, I think it's time to go outside and make some smoke. What do you think? Traditional flint and steel, it's just that easy. I'm not going to bother taking this to flame. You've seen me do that a lot of times, but that little mini flint and steel kit, it's getting hot. Works quite well. This nitrated tinder lights right up with a ferro rod. I don't know if you can tell, but it's burning fast and it's burning hot. I have gotten this to work with traditional flint and steel, but I was having a little bit of trouble with my mini flint and steel kit. Just kind of hard to hold on to. It does work, and I've demonstrated that in a different video. I'm not going to take this to flame. You've seen me do that a lot of times, but this nitrated tinder is hot and it burns fast. Really spectacular stuff. Let's see if we can get this little pile of fat wood shavings to ignite. There it goes. And for good measure, let's go ahead and ignite this little cotton makeup pad that I soaked in candle wax. That makes for a really nice little fire starter. That will probably burn for a good 5 minutes or so. So what do you think? Did I meet my daughter's challenge? I think so. A couple of things before I let you go. This little ferro rod is kind of a pain to work with. Even with the honeysuckle handle that I put on it, it's so small, it's right on the edge of usability for me. One strike ignitions become multiple strike attempts with this little guy. I found that the best way to use it was to hold the striker and then pull the ferro rod away from me. That way I could direct my sparks a little bit better. Your mileage may vary, but this does work, but it's right on the edge of usability for me. The other thing, the cotton makeup pads that I soak in candle wax, I should probably point out that when I'm making these, I soak them really good. I double dip them, sometimes triple dip them down into the wax. They're really thoroughly coated. Usually when I'm working with these in my backyard fire pit, I'll just kind of tear them in half, expose a few of the fibers, and light it with a match. If you don't coat these as heavily as I do, sometimes you can ignite these also with a ferro rod, but I usually ignite them with the match. That's why I lit it with the fat wood shavings a few seconds ago. Your mileage may vary. Use it however you wish. Make your kits and your parts to suit your own needs. Anyhow, that's all for this one. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time. Look how energetically this is burning. Goodness gracious. Ow, 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 ow. That burns hot and it burns fast, folks. Maybe we'll redo that one. It turned out to be such a nice day that I decided to build a fire that me and my old granddad, Bonded, could enjoy.